So welcome to City Council. It is time to get started. And this is our last council meeting of 2021, if you can believe that. So, went by in a... That's right. We'll blink in 2022, it'll be over also. So tonight we have with us Tim Martin from the Interfaith Council to give us our invocation.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and want to invite everyone to our prayer over the city, January 1st at noon. So it should be easy to remember, Saturday, January 1st in the Tabernacle. A 1 hour at the most program. We have usually 16 faith leaders offer a 1 or 2 minute prayer. We tell them you're here to pray, not to preach. And the Interfaith Choir will be there. And it's just a wonderful feeling to realize the interfaith element that we have in our community. So please join us New Year's Day for the prayer over the city. So if you'll all join me in prayer now. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful this day for the blessings that we enjoy by living in this wonderful city of St. George. We're thankful for the hard work of our mayor and city council and all those who serve our city to make this a wonderful place to live. We're mindful this day of the virus that is affecting so many. We pray that we can all be wise and be able to avoid the trauma and the illness. We're thankful for the beauty of the area that we have. We're thankful for the rain that we've had. Pray for more, that we might be able to have the beauty of growth that we so much need and so much enjoy. We pray a blessing upon those who will be speaking and participating in this meeting, that they might be inspired to say those things that will be in the best interest of their needs and of the city's needs and of the citizens. We pray that good decisions will be made and that wisdom will prevail. We're thankful for this Christmas season, for the lights that bring us all together. We're thankful for the efforts of the city to lighten our spirits and to brighten our time. We ask thy prayer now to be with all of us here in this city, and especially those in this meeting, and this we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. If you'll all arise and join me in the pledge. So I have one proclamation here that I want to read. So it's for Wreaths Across America, which is happening this Saturday. Whereas Wreaths Across America is a nonprofit organization that began in 2006 as an extension of the Arlington National Cemetery Wreath Project. And whereas the project originally started in 1992 when wreaths donated by the Worcester Wreath Company were placed on the headstones of our nation's fallen heroes during the holidays. And whereas the Utah State Society Daughters of the American Revolution, having partnered with Wreaths Across America in a mutual mission to remember the fallen, honor those who have served, and teach children the value of freedom. And whereas family members, friends, and citizens of all ages will volunteer their time to adorn the grave sites with Christmas wreaths in a stirring tribute to the courage and sacrifice of those who have guarded and preserved our nation's freedom throughout history. And whereas this year marks the 11th anniversary of this event taking place at Tonnequint Cemetery, and whereas today, Wreaths Across America ceremonies will be held throughout the state at participating cemetery locations to gratefully remember and honor Utah veterans and to thank them once again for their service to our community during this holiday season. Now, therefore, I, Michelle Randall, Mayor, along with the City Council of the City of St. George, do hereby proclaim Saturday, December 18th, 2021 as Wreaths Across America Day in the City of St. George, and encourage all residents of St. George and the surrounding areas to join together in this solemn day of remembrance and to participate in these ceremonies. And Susan Dransfield with the Daughters of the American Revolution is here. Susan, I'll bring this proclamation down and then you can tell them what time it's happening, and
Okay.
go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring it down.
Okay. Mayor Randall and Councilman, we'd like to thank you very much graciously for this award or this proclamation. And we want to let you know that nearly 20,000 wreaths are being sponsored in this Washington County area. We have nearly 2,100 wreaths. 1,160 are being laid in St. George, and then 910 in Tonnequint, and then 21 in Shivwitz. Everyone is invited to attend the ceremony on December 18th at 10 o'clock, where the color guard and many school performances will be held during this ceremony. And we want to let you know that our goal this year was 3,000 locations throughout the U.S., and currently we have 55 locations here in Utah that are doing a ceremony and presenting the wreaths. So thank you very much. Okay. She's going to come down.
And tell Val we missed her.
Yes, I will. Well, thank you very much.
But they do that little program at 10 down there, okay.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a great Saturday.
Mayor, I might have been the only one who missed it, but I just asked Councilman Hughes, so the program is at Tonnequint. I didn't hear that part. So at Tonnequint at 10. Okay.
So I asked Captain Jordan Minnick with the St. George Police Department to come here tonight. So I'm going to read something really quick. So the Rocky Mountain, and it's, do they say the word, or is it just the initials, Jordan? HIDA, which stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas, right? They received an award Tuesday morning in Denver. The Washington County Drug Task Force received the award for Task Force of the Year. The task force helped prosecute over 50 federal defendants this past year. And our Washington County Task Force is made up of not only St. George Police Department, but Washington City, Hurricane, the Sheriff's Department, the DEA, and HSI. Jordan, can you come up and tell us just a little bit about it? And we just want to say, awesome job. Congratulations.
Well, Mayor and Council, thank you for this. Thank you to Councilman Smethers, who actually came out and supported us in that. That was awesome to have that support there, particularly because we are the home agency for the task force. We do handle the fiduciary stuff and the homework of it, so to have our own representative there was pretty awesome. But I'll give you a little bit of a background for the task force. Like the mayor said, it is made up of several agencies throughout the county. And to give you a little more background, there's some things that were not of our fault. A task force was actually kind of under a notice with HIDA for a while because of some of our program stats not being met. And to go from that to being the Task Force of the Year through 26 different HIDA programs was pretty amazing. And I want to read some stats to you. And these ones, if we were in banking or something else, these numbers would be phenomenal. And although I'm proud, they should also be a little bit of a warning to us too. So for our task force in 2021, our fentanyl seizures went up 1,110%. Marijuana. I know. I'm not even going to look at them because then I'm going to have to take that in. And
yeah.
I think I can feel it coming.
Yeah.
So our marijuana, 954%. Cocaine was over 1,000. Our meth seizures were up 760%. And our asset seizures were up by 666%. And so although that's fantastic work, it's also a little eye-opening that this is what's coming, I guess, with our growth. But the fact that we have such professionals that are tackling it and going after these folks, these aren't the addicts. We empathize with the addicts. These are the ones that are preying on the addicts that are going after them. And so the task force guys wanted to be here, but
They can't.
They can't. So you get me. But anyway, we appreciate the recognition. We appreciate the support. It means more and then you know that you would be willing to help the police department support the task force so that we can go out there and go after the worst of the worst. So thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. And please pass along our congratulations to the task force. We don't know them all, and if you ran into them, you would run the other way, some of them. But they're doing a great job.
I do want to tell a story for Michelle, if you don't mind, for Mayor. There was an instance where she got to meet them, and they were in a room, and she came in and said, "Who are these people, and why are they here?" And we said, "Oh, they're all cops." And she was like, "No, they're not."
They were the most motley-looking crew I'd ever seen. I was actually kind of scared because they were sitting behind me, like staring at me, and I'm like, "Who are these people?" And then I found out who they are, and I had to start laughing.
And the best part was they were there to support her son. And so
yeah, exactly. So it was really weird.
It was good. Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I appreciate it.
So I'd like to say too, Jordan, that I got to spend a couple of days with some of the most amazing guys and gals, and what a great group of people they are. They work well together. Short story real quick. One of them went to school with one of my sister-in-law, and he says, she used to cut my hair. And so I texted her and said, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" And she says, "Yeah, I used to cut his hair." And I said, "Well, he still needs a haircut."
Yeah.
So what great people. They dedicate themselves 100% to this job, and they are making a huge difference in our community. So thanks, Jordan.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Jordan. Appreciate it. Adam, are there any changes to our agenda?
There is one change. Item 6 has been removed at the request of the applicant, so as soon as that's ready to come back to you, we'll get that scheduled for a future meeting. Other than that, no additional changes. That would take us to the consent calendar. Council, if you're ready, we have 13 items this evening. As usual, these are items that have been reviewed by staff. They comply with all of our regulations. They are administrative in nature. I would note that this does include several sets of minutes in item M. Unless the council would like to discuss any of these in detail, or if you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, staff does recommend approval.
I had just item number K. I just wanted to call that one out. I think that's pretty significant and kind of exciting. So do we have full approvals to move forward on that then?
We do. We got a lot of assistance for funding from the state and other agencies, and it's just another great project that SwitchPoint is doing. We're excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great location, and I'm really excited that went through. So I just wanted to call that out. That's great. Good job to the staff, Shirlane. Awesome. And it's just really cool.
Thanks, Greg. I was going to say the same thing. It's really amazing.
Thanks for pointing that out. And there's a lot of great things happening at SwitchPoint that will, maybe after the first of the year, we'll give you all an update, right, Shirley? So, yeah.
Mayor, I read the minutes and they looked good. I will make a motion if you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. Motion to approve the consent calendar and minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
If I could ask for a second, is the volume okay in the back? Can you hear us on the mics? Sounds a little softer than normal. A lot of thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is a public hearing in consideration of a subdivision amendment. This is in the Mill Creek Industrial Park. This is Amendment A for lots 131 to 135. It's a lot line adjustment and a vacation of associated public utility easements. I've got on my notes that Wes is going to make that presentation, but I don't see Wes anywhere. We'll see if we can track him down. Why don't we go ahead and move to item 3 while we're locating Wes, if that's okay. This is our presentation of the annual comprehensive annual financial report, which we call a CAFR, and this is for fiscal year 2021. And so Trevor's going to provide some additional information as part of the presentation.
So this is an item that we bring before the council each year. It's not a requirement, but we find it's a great opportunity to put you guys face to face with our auditor that does our review of our financial reports. But before I turn the time over to Steve Palmer from Hinton Burdick, he's a auditing partner with Hinton Burdick. I just wanted to give big thanks to a lot of the people that put a lot of time and effort into it. The budget team, Dee, Robert, Chad, and particularly Tiffany LaJoyce. She spends countless hours each year putting this together and does a fabulous job. She even put a little bit extra effort into it this year. We're trying to go for the Certification of Excellence Award on the CAFR, and I think that hopefully we've achieved that. I think we have, but big thanks to her and all she does and her professionalism in that. But Steve, I'll turn the time over to Steve just a little bit as he's coming up. They come on site for approximately about 2 weeks just after the month of August, and we basically disclose all of our information and have full access to all of our records and our team and anything that may need, even the council and so on and so forth. But they do an outstanding job, and it's a pleasure to work with a professional group like they are. So.
Thank you, Trevor. Mayor Randall, members of the council, city management, thank you for allowing me to take a few minutes this evening to discuss the results of our recently completed audit, or soon to be completed audit. As Trevor mentioned, it is quite an extensive process. We ask for a lot of documents and a lot of support to ensure that the city's finances and the financial statements are correctly recorded and reported. I too would like to thank Tiffany, Trevor, Deanna, and all the other members of management and staff that help us complete the audit so efficiently each year. I truly appreciate their efforts. As was mentioned, my name is Steve Palmer. I'm an audit partner with Hinton Burdick CPAs and Advisors, and we are very near completion of the fiscal year 21 audit. We're just dotting a few I's and crossing a few T's, so to speak. Tiffany has provided us with a draft copy of the financial statements. I've done a thorough review of those. We're just making a few minor changes, and I'm very certain that they will be completed and ready to be issued by the end of the year when they're required to be submitted to the state. In conjunction with the financial statements, there are a few different reports that we need to issue. The first being the independent auditor's report. It is in this report where we express our opinion on the financial statements and whether or not they're fairly presented in accordance with accounting standards. I'm pleased to report that we are issuing an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's what you want. That means that in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the city's financial position and the results of its operations for fiscal year 2021. We issue a second report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. I'm pleased to report that we have no items of any significance that are required to be reported there, no findings there. We are also required to issue a third report, which is on state legal compliance, how the city did in complying with the state laws that regulate the city's finances. We did note one minor item there. The Central Business District CDA fund reported a deficit fund balance of just under $3 million. State law states that no fund should have a deficit fund balance. This fund is reporting a deficit. This is a result of the St. George Inn and Cityview Alleyway project. Those assets that were acquired a few years ago, the cash went out, and the city has not yet seen significant revenues from those items. It's resulted in the deficit fund balance. Excuse me. Lastly, due to the amount of federal funding that the city received, we're also required to complete a federal single audit where we go through a selection process, select a couple of the grants that the city receives, audit those programs for compliance with federal requirements. We did have one finding in the federal single audit regarding the period of performance. For the FTA grant, Suntran, the grant that the city is operating under technically ended on June 30th, 2020, and the city did not receive an extension to continue operations after that date for a number of reasons. And if you'd like to go through those items, I'll call on Trevor, Tiffany, and maybe Adam to go through those. It's interesting, the period of performance did technically end, but the city continued to receive funding as had been agreed to with the FTA even after that date. So it's more a matter of crossing the T's and dotting the I's and getting that extension and getting the new grant agreement in place that the city needs to work on. I'm pleased to report that all the state reports will be submitted by the deadline, as will the federal single audit. And once again, I'd like to express my appreciation to the city staff and all those that helped us complete the audit. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address those at this time.
So on the Suntran, Adam, wasn't that due to COVID and a few things that, Trevor, do you want to explain that real quick to the council?
I can do that, or Adam can do it. But yeah, you're right. So because of COVID, the Suntran grant was actually extended. The formality came where we knew that it was extended, but we're supposed to request in writing an extension on our grant. That wasn't done. Part of it was due to change in management. Fred left, Jason came in, and so there were some things there. We have since requested an extension. We haven't received that formalized yet. Like Steve indicated, we have continued to receive money on the FAA Suntran grant, which is obviously a good sign. They typically wouldn't just give you money if they're not going to give an extension, but we have gone through those hoops and done that. We just haven't got that formal request back. So good question.
Thank you. Any questions for Steve? Thank you. I wouldn't
Thank
want
you.
your job.
Thank you.
And council,
Thanks,
again,
Tiffany.
Yeah, again, this is just a presentation, but I wanted to also say that as well. A special thanks to Tiffany. We have a great financial team, and I feel like we've got the best of the best. For the audit, there is nobody I would rather have oversee that process. It is extremely complicated and involved, and Tiffany just does an unbelievable job. We're really proud of her and what she brings to our team. It's incredible. So
If
thank
I
you,
had
Tiffany.
an auditor come and breathe down my neck for 2 weeks, I'd be sweating bullets. So, not that I have anything to hide. It's just, it wouldn't be fun, but she does
intense.
it all the time and does it well. So thank you. We appreciate that. Did Wes show up?
Yes, Cameron, let's have you do that for us. Item 2.
He's down talking to a developer. Sorry about that. So item 2, Mill Creek, I went through it, reviewed it. Wes did also. It's just moving some lot lines. We've taken care of the easements and everything like that. There's no utilities in the way. It's just a formality requested by the property owners. But it's out in the Mill Creek Industrial Park just off of Deseret Drive. If you have any specific questions, I may be able to answer some, but if it gets too detailed, I may not be able to.
Detailed questions for Cameron that he can't answer?
That would have been a lot longer if Wes would have done it.
Right? Well, I don't know. He's talking really fast lately, so. Okay, then I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, we do need to have the public hearing.
Oh, that's right. This is a public hearing. So with that, I will now open the public hearing for anyone who has come to comment on the subdivision amendment for Mill Creek Industrial Park. Seeing that, I'll close the public hearing. Now come back to you, Council, for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve a subdivision amendment for Mill Creek Industrial Park, partial amendment A, lots 131 through 135, by adjusting the lot lines and vacating their associated public utility easements.
I'll second. Motion by Vardell, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Items 4 and 5 are both related to a complete streets policy, and Cameron will make this presentation.
Okay, item 4 is the ordinance. Item 5 is the policy. Item 4 relates to ordinance 7-1-1, and I've got it up on the screen. For those that want to view it, you have it in your packet. It essentially adds Section D, Complete Streets Policy, which approves the Complete Streets Policy and also adopts a Complete Streets Committee, which would be appointed by mayor. The policy, let me go to this, does state with that committee, those that would be involved with that committee would be representatives from the Community Development Department, Public Works Department, and Parks Planning. The Complete Streets policy, I've highlighted just a few things on here, just in a summary. Basically, it's to provide multimodal functionality for all multi-modes of all transportation modes. That's walking, biking, transit users, any kind of drivers, vehicles obviously, but try and find a balance between those modes of transportation. There are 10 elements in this policy. Hopefully it was an easy read from the 20 pages that we had previously. We do have one section that I will mention. There are certain exceptions that this committee would be looking at, and I've highlighted those. There's 5 of them. Any of these exceptions would stop us from putting all of those modes in there, and I'll just read through there. The street, so these are the exceptions. If the street in question prohibits by law users of a particular mode of transportation, say the highway system, you don't put pedestrians out on the highway system. You have right-of-way fences to block it off. If there's severe topographic or natural resource constraints, if the capital and maintenance costs of complete streets elements would be significantly disproportionate to the needs or qualified benefits, or significantly exceed the established budget, which you will see in any of our roadway project budgets that come to you each year. And then number 4, where an equivalent public street project that is already programmed and or funded will provide similar or better accommodations for all users. And then lastly is a catch-all, because we don't foresee everything. This is any unforeseen extenuating circumstances requiring an exception is determined by the committee. Lastly, no, that was it. I think that's the basic summary of this Complete Streets policy. We would need to revise some of our design standards in our design and construction standards to accommodate cross sections, which we would then also come back to the council for approval to look at. But that more or less summarizes the policy. I do feel like this form, we can work it. It can work. It's basically setting up this committee to where we talk about our projects and see if there's other elements that we need in here that we haven't thought about before. It would take our transportation plan, our active transportation plan, our parks planning for our trails, and make sure that we're just coordinating amongst the departments to try and get those into a complete plan of a project as we design it and budget it.
And I asked you this before, Cameron, in an email, but how much of this are we not already doing in some form?
We're doing most of it in elements of it. If I were to just throw a number, you've heard this before, we're probably doing 80% of this already. I coordinate with Parks in a monthly meeting when we have coordination items. We sometimes, and I will say that we might have a project that's already budgeted that maybe we wanted the trail, maybe we wanted other elements in there, but we didn't get to it soon enough. We didn't get to it in the planning stage when we went to for the budget, but we do coordinate it later on, and sometimes we've had to do change orders to try and add in some of those elements. But we do coordinate. My development staff coordinates a lot with community development. Weekly basis they're coordinating, and so on that side of it with new development we're coordinating it. This more formalizes it, but we are already doing most of what's in Complete Streets. We're already doing it.
And so then the catalyst for this is to help you bring that into a more collaborative effort with the other departments?
Yes, in this also, yes, the answer is yes, to try and make sure we really formalize that each year with all of our projects, just to make sure that we're not missing something. Maybe another set of eyes looking at all of our transportation projects when they come before council. Another portion of this is with our existing active transportation committee. This does indicate that, hey, we can provide some receive some input from that committee on some of whatever projects we might have going on.
And I don't see that in here now, but I'd also ask you a question about, there was a section that said that committee shall approve certain things, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't Like-
we took that out.
Okay.
Took out all the
Yeah.
shalls.
Okay, all right, perfect.
We took out all the shalls, and it's more, we can receive input if we feel like we need it, but that's basically all the policy says.
And then any pitfalls you see
We really,
from a car driver's standpoint?
from a car driver standpoint, the question came up, okay, the question just today was, are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing walking and biking and transit and other uses, pedestrian uses, over drivers? And I reread through this thing, and we really tried to smooth it out to balance that. And it
Cameron,
really...
that's an interesting question, if I can interrupt you,
Go.
because that would also bring us to, have we since the 1960s prioritized cars over safety? You know, so I mean, I think, to me, you're doing a great presentation. I think this is exactly why the Complete Streets policy matters, is because it's bringing that balance back, where there's not just one mode of transportation that matters, which, as you say, we've already been working really hard to make sure that wasn't the case, but this just brings that coordination all together to make sure that things aren't an afterthought, like you mentioned, that like sometimes we're not doing a change order because we forgot something. This gives us the opportunity to really look at every modality beforehand, right? And make sure that we're covering that. And I think it's really cool because it's kind of like streets of a bygone era. You know, if you look at old streets, old St. George, they were streets where everybody, regardless of modality, could use our streets. And then somewhere in the 1950s and 60s, we became super auto-centric, and our streets became just spaces for moving cars, and we started losing like our community spaces where people could get out and walk and interact and use different forms of transportation. So to me, it's kind of cool because it's kind of a shout out to the smartness of a bygone era that we're like heading back that direction. And anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to bring that up too.
No, and I would agree with that. I like that concept on a design level. And, you know, starting out, so we have that kind of a street where I get a little nervous. And you can look at me and say, when I hear the word diet, I get nervous. When we say road diet and then we start doing some of these things that I've received complaints on, we got to be a little cautious about the safety factor when we start saying, are we going to try to squeeze a bike lane in here where maybe it isn't safe to squeeze a bike lane in? And I'm still not quite sure we're going to be okay on South Main as that develops and gets busier, if we're not going to cause some accidents there.
Well, it's interesting, though. That's an interesting concept. I totally understand what you're saying, but it's also, if you look at the data, roads that are dieted, actually, then the safety increases markedly. So because people slow down. So people were driving way over the speed limit on South Main. Now we're seeing people driving in a safe manner. So to me, I mean, above everything else, like our number one goal is safety at the end of the day. Like, you know, our number one goal isn't to get people as fast as they can from point A to point B.
Do you know how many tickets Jimmy's gotten? That's why he's mad about South Main.
Is that what it is? Okay, we'll keep
South
it on the
Main
down
was,
low.
I could always get around that slow person. Now I can't.
So that's exactly why it's safer, right?
I could understand that.
So to tie up that all together, we do see a lot of speeding in St. George. And it's the South Main portion, and I mentioned to Jim MacArthur that when he goes to develop that, we will be re-looking at that and seeing what is the best solution for that. Right. What is the balance between your pedestrian, your sidewalks, your bike lanes, your traffic, and how many lanes and things like that. And I even mentioned to him that, you know, if you develop something in there and council approves it that has a lot of traffic volumes, well, maybe a solution is to put trails next to it, but to still provide pedestrian, bicycle, safety, access, and multi-modes of transportation.
Right. Cameron, you know, Councilman Hughes' point is very good, that there is a difference between a street and a road. A road's like a highway, right? And a road is for moving cars fast, and we definitely will have roads in our city that these modalities don't belong on. And then we'll have streets, and streets are about community and about wealth building and interaction. So it's a totally different concept. So
yeah, a good example is Bluff Street. We got to move traffic. We have a lot of traffic, 40,000 plus cars a day, where we're trying to move traffic. South Main right now, because it has some traffic, but it doesn't have all of it developed out to where it's high use and everything like that, and so it could have to move traffic someday, just vehicular traffic, and we would have to come up with other facilities to try and accommodate that. But the idea is we need to look at it and not just one mode, but all of them. I hope that answers your question.
Other questions for Cameron? Well, you give me that face. Do you have a question?
Questions? No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
I like, I'll make a comment, no question. I like where you've got with it, Cameron. I think as we're a recreation destination here in Southern Utah. And as we look at things, it's really good to keep that recreation aspect, that transportation aspect in mind. And I think this policy got to a good place. Me and Danielle were talking a little bit earlier today. One example that I thought is a great example of things that we did really well with transportation, and maybe this policy will help with that as we move forward, is Snow Canyon Parkway. So that could be a disaster of a place that nobody wants to go, but because of the trail system we put along it, it's like, it's awesome. It's a really great place to go down, and so I like it for those things.
Yeah, it's a good example of a roadway that has to move traffic, but yet we still have pedestrian and bicycle facilities next to it and along it.
And for the record, I get on a bike once in a while.
I've seen him.
Yeah. So
I need it more, so.
So if there's no other questions, item number 4.
So we have to amend the ordinance first
Yes.
and then do the complete streets policy
Yep.
to allow it in. So Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 1, Section 1 of City Code pertaining to supervision of streets to incorporate and adopt a complete streets policy.
I'll second it.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Greg. This requires a roll call vote. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. So now, item number 5, to adopt the complete streets policy.
I'll make that next motion also, Mayor, that we approve a proposed complete streets policy which provides additional oversight of planning and designing of city streets as presented by Cameron.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. This was a tabled item from the last City Council meeting, and we are talking about the Zion Regional Medical Center case, case 2021 ZC 076, and we kind of already went over the project. So just kind of a reminder, we're looking at this piece of property that's along 3050 East and then east of 850 North, right here below the Walmart and the Home Depot that are in Washington City. And just another reminder of the hospital, which will be right here. So for the recommendation, the reason why this one was tabled, as you remember, there was some issues on the timeline on getting our substation built and then also getting allowing the applicant to be able to develop this lot. And so, oops, went back for me. So on the recommendation, all of these conditions are the same conditions as was before, but we've added one, and that is a condition that kind of talks about the timeline. So all of these ones, the 1 through 7, and then number 8 is the new one. So these are the ones that the Planning Commission saw that they recommended approval on. And then tonight, I just want to talk a little bit about the Pineview Substation milestones. When we were able to meet with the applicant, this is the city with our electric department meeting with the applicants, we were able to come up with some milestones that everyone agreed that we needed to achieve each of these milestones before the next step can happen. So this was not in your packet, and you should have the paper that talks about it. So the first one is basically a soils report needs to be done for the substation, the location the substation is planning on going. And I think we've already talked about it, but the substation will be going, it's basically the southeast portion of the property. The second one, approval of a 40-foot wide easement to run along the east side of the property line of the hospital. And this is to, well, actually it's the east side of the entire parcel or the entire land of the Sandberg property. And this is to provide an extra line in case there's any type of a power outage or a problem with the existing line. This will be like a backup. So that's really important for hospitals. So we have that in there. And number 3 is to finalize the substation property purchase. And number 4 is to survey the substation property. The next step would be the developer to submit drawings for site plan and building plan review. The next step would be grading and designs for the substation with permanent access given to the city. And then temporary access road needs to be graded and to be able to construct the substation site. The 8th step is for the city to actually issue the building permit. So this is, the substation won't be complete at this time, but for the city to be able to issue the building permit as long as it's been approved by the site plan and then the construction drawings are approved. And then 9, once the grading and foundation designs are complete for the substation, construction documents are prepared and then the project is to be built out so that the substation will be building while the hospital will be building, in hopes that we get the substation completed long before we get the hospital ready to be open. So that's what I have on that. And we have talked with the applicants on this. They're okay with all of these conditions. Our electric department's okay with these conditions. Staff and in community development is also okay with these conditions. So,
and council, I would point out as well, it's on the top of the paper that you're given, but we are allowing these to be done concurrently. Many of them can be done at the same time. So we're hoping for a compressed time frame and we ought to be able to see construction begin quickly.
Any questions for Carol?
Carol, could you go back to the previous slide, the conditions or, yeah, the recommendations. Yes. So one thing I just wanted to make sure, I had this comment last time we brought this up, was just that the city of St. George and the city of Washington are in agreement with the access that goes into Washington, so up through, is that in there? I just didn't know, I just wanted
let's see, there is, the applicant will work with staff on the accesses into Washington City. Staff has been working already with the Public Works Department in Washington City, and like it was mentioned when we talked about this before, they don't quite have all of the land. Washington City doesn't quite own all of the land yet. There's still 30 feet, which is just an easement. So they would have to acquire that first. And once they're ready to move forward, the city of St. George is ready, as well as the applicant. They've already worked this into their plans. There shouldn't be a problem with that.
Okay. Yeah, yes, please, sure.
So with this, as long as we can get the right-of-way, the easement, and on the plan, which the applicant has indicated that we can, there's a little portion of easement that's missing on the Washington side, but Washington City staff is completely 100% for it. And so they will have to do some due diligence to get some right-of-way from Home Depot. But if we get this right-of-way, as we've discussed, then at least we'll have our piece, and then we'll get it built as soon as Washington gets theirs.
So a follow-up question to that then. So we have that easement issue. Would you say we should require that access to go through for this to work? I mean, are we going to blast 30, 50? Is it going to be a total nightmare if that doesn't go through?
It'd be nice if we could, but we've dealt with Home Depot, and we know how long it would take them. I don't think they could do it in a year. This applicant, because the only reason that we were able to work with Home Depot trying to get a storm drain easement from them is we've got the threat of condemnation. And so we sent them a friendly letter saying, hey, we might have to do this over here, getting a storm drain easement from them, and then that's when Home Depot responded. And this applicant won't have that ability. But Washington does.
Yeah.
And they are willing to do that if needs be, according to their public works director.
So your point is, Cameron, that it will happen. It
Yes.
just might be a lengthy process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor will make a motion based on this, the Pineview Substation Milestones. I think that took a lot of coordination and work on all the parties to come together and find a solution that's good for us as a city and also good for that project. And so I'd make the motion that we approve an ordinance changing the zone from C3 to R110 and R110 to PDC on approximately 15 acres located east of 3050 East Street, north of 750 North, to be known as Zion Regional Medical Center.
Second.
Motion by Bardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, starting with Bardell.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
On that last one, was that including all of the recommendations? Just wanted to clarify.
It was. That's
I s- made
Yeah,
that-
all the
I made-
milestones
I made
were
that
there.
assumption as well.
Accidentally exited out of everything on that one. There we go. Okay, this next case is also in conjunction with the last one. It is an item that was tabled from the last city council meeting, case 2021 ZC 074. This is for the White Hills development, which is located in the same location as the Zion Regional Medical Center along 3050 East Street and north of 750. This is just kind of refreshing your memory. Basically, in front of the hospital, which is going to go right here, and then it kind of extends to the south a little bit of that. And then this is their plans. And they're not getting any buildings approved at this time. It's just for their use list and for the zone. They'll come back when they're ready for the architecture and site plans for their buildings. Okay, so once again, the recommended conditions, we have not changed any of these except, and there were a lot more on these because there was more involvement because of the traffic study. So this one, there were 12 conditions. There was a lot of them from Public Works based on the initial traffic study that we received. And if you'd like to go over any of these, we certainly can. The new one is the item 13, and it's basically the Pineview Substation milestones are achieved, and it's exactly the same piece of paper or document with the Pineview station or substation milestones. So I just listed the same exact thing, so I'm not going to go over it again, but it's the same conditions on that. And if you have any questions on any of this, I can certainly help you. And like with the Regional Medical Center, we did talk with the applicant, and they are okay with these conditions as well.
Carol, is this the finalized, or it will be the finalized road plan? As far as, I just wanted to make sure. It was hard for me to tell if people could turn in from 3050 is what I'm basically asking. I can't tell if there's entrances there, and if there are, then we probably.
Are you talking about over here?
Uh-huh.
I believe there's one access there, but I'm not
With
for
no
sure on
decel
that.
lane, it doesn't show decel lane.
It looks like there's one access, but when they come back with the official site plan for the site,
Okay.
They'll have the road on there, and they'll show the exact entrances and
Okay,
exits.
I just wanted
and
to make sure
if
these
they're
weren't exact,
write-ins,
because they seem
write-in,
like
yeah.
they're not complete.
And
Okay.
this is a conceptual plan of how the buildings will go and the entrances, but there, yeah.
Other questions for Carol?
make a motion to approve the ordinance changing the zone from C3 to M1 and R110 single-family residence to PDC on approximately 26.99 acres located east of 3050 East Street, north of 750 North Street, to be known as St. George White Hills Development.
I'll second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back, Mr. Sandberg.
All
Glad
right.
to see you smile.
Okay, item number 9, moving on, is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Southern Hills West PDC zone to change the zoning from PDR, which is Planned Development Residential, to PDC, Planned Development Commercial, on approximately 0.6 acres, and to approve a design and site plan for a new commercial development on approximately 5.1 acres located the northeast corner of River Road and White Dome Drive, to be known as White Dome Commercial. So I've got an area map here showing the location. This is just north of Southern Parkway, where it intersects with River Road, and this isn't labeled, but this is White Dome Drive right here. So right now, the general plan shows basically just a square here at this location that is commercial, and then the zoning is PDC. Tonight, then this case and then the next case are a little bit related in that they're all in the same location. So we're going to be talking about Area 10, but we're also going to be talking about Area 9 and Area 8. These are two residential areas, so that'll be the next case that we'll hear. So what they're asking tonight is, first of all, they're asking to modify the plan to extend the commercial a little bit, eat a little bit into the residential, and then, so basically taking this little corner right there and taking that out and changing that to PDC. And then they're also asking for approval of their site plan, their elevations, and their use lists for this development. So here we are. Here's River Road and White Dome Drive. And then right here will be a public road, a 60-foot public road. And then there will be an entrance into this commercial area with also an entrance into the residential at this point. So this is a six building residential area shown on here. As far as parking goes, they were planning on doing about 60% restaurant and 40% retail. So they do have quite a bit of parking in here to allow for more restaurants. So they are required to put in 178 stalls, and they do have 178 stalls. So they are meeting the regulations for that split that I talked about on that. And then I did put it here together with the residential just to kind of show you the buffer. We've got the apartment buildings here and then over on this side as well. So they will be required to put in the landscape buffer as well as a 6-foot fence in those locations. On the use list, they do have a car wash, and they are asking for to put in a car wash at this location. For the elevation views, the maximum on these, they'll all be one-story buildings, so they'll be only 24 feet tall for the C-store, so there's not an issue with the heights. But that was the front of the C-store. This is the side. This is what you'll see from River Road, this side right here, and then this one will be along the parking lot. There's some renderings of the C-store and what it will look like. And there will be gas tanks out front, gas pumps as well. The other developments, little cluster commercial developments, are pictured here. This will kind of go in the back of the development. And then this is what they'll look like. This side over here, the left side is River Road on this. And then the front side, of course, the C-store will be in front of it. That will be White Dome Drive. This is the car wash that they're planning on putting in. This side right here will be facing River Road, so facing the west. This side right here will be facing the east, and that's where the residential is. The car wash, this side right here, this is where they'll be going in and coming out. This side will be on the residential side of the car wash. And then here's some 3D renderings. This side right here will not be up against the residential, but be against the rest of the commercial development. And I do want to mention this was a change. They did not have vacuums. These are vacuums right here. They did not have this with when they presented this to the Planning Commission. So they did have the building flip-flopped, and they decided they wanted to put vacuums in where the parking spaces were. So they flip-flopped this car wash so that they could put them in, because right now our regulations don't allow vacuums to be located directly next to a residential. So now they're next to the rest of the commercial on that.
Can you show us that on the
Yeah.
site plan to show
Yeah.
it flopped?
Yes. Let me go back. So the way it was before is this parking was over here, and the entrance was over here. So it's just this. It's like I don't know how to do it with my mouse. This kind of flip-flopped it so that you go in right here, and then you come out of the car wash, and then the vacuums will be right here, as opposed to the vacuums were right here, and you went in over on this side. So.
Okay, thank you.
To make that possible. I do have some material boards over here. These colors that they've chosen, they were trying to blend in with the colors of the landscape in this area, and that's the colors that they have chosen. And if you want to look at them, you're certainly welcome to. And I do want to point out as well that the colors do match the residential development that we'll be hearing next as well. The Planning Commission did recommend approval, just making sure that they meet all the requirements in the zoning regulations for planned developments. So any questions for me, or I do have the representative here as well, if you have any questions for him.
I was asking our city manager about a stoplight right there, just because this will be a commercial space that I think there's a high school's going in across the street. The university is going to have a space directly west, which is fantastic. I think they'll love this, but there will be a stoplight there so that they can safely get to their commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
Questions or comments for Carol? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I think this is a great place for commercial. I make a motion we approve an ordinance amending the Southern Hills West PDC, PDR to PDC on approximately 0.6 acres to approve a design a site plan for a new commercial development on approximately 5.1 acres located on the northeast corner of River Road and White Dome Drive, to be known as White Dome Commercial.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Bardell.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay. As promised, item number 10 is all about the apartments in the White Dome area. So this is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Southern Hills West Planned Development Residential Zone to approve a conceptual site plan, elevations, landscaping, and parking on approximately 14.96 acres located at the northeast corner of River Road and White Dome Drive, to be known as White Dome Apartments. So same location, here's the commercial, and it's just kind of behind it and around it a little bit to the east. General plan shows this as high-density residential, and the zoning is PDR. So here's the site plan. You kind of got a peek of it before, of both units. This is a 60-foot right-of-way that will be going in between them. The units, the buildings themselves will be very similar, the same buildings, just two different developments and and so they'll have their own amenities on each side. When this was presented to the Planning Commission, they were short a little bit of their guest parking. However, they have reworked the site plan, so now both sides will meet the regulations, which require 654 spaces. So they do now meet it. What they did to meet that is they lost a couple islands here, and then they did a little bit of a change up here on the way the parking was situated. So I think they were only short like 14 spaces, so they were able to get those, so they do meet the requirements. There will be a total of 280 units with this entire development. Oh, there we go. So the site plan, this is basically the site plan showing it with the commercial next to it. I will mention, they are required to have 2 amenities, each of them, because of the number of units. They both will have swimming pools, sports courts. This development on this side will have a clubhouse as well. And then they'll also have some extra green space around their property. Here's the elevations, the exterior elevations. There will be 3-story and 4-story buildings, so they are going to be asking to be able to have the height increased to 49 feet for the 4-story buildings. As I mentioned, all of the architecture of these buildings will be very similar, so they're going to be using color to differentiate the buildings. So this one's kind of a gray color. We've got a brown here on this elevation of how they look. They will have balconies. And then this one actually kind of looks gray, sagey color. This is the mocha color. And then this is gray. I don't know. There's a lot of grayish in that same family. So I'm calling them all gray, but they're not all gray. They're all this different color. And Moroccan spice. So I do have the color boards for these up here as well. And some more elevations, and then the building materials. We did present this to the Planning Commission. They did recommend approval. They did have a recommendation on the parking, but since they're meeting it now, we're just going to remove that. So basically, the 2 conditions are that it meets the PDF or PDR zoning regulations, and then the maximum height will be 49 feet. So any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Carol?
I think it's a great space for multifamily. And with that, Mayor, I will make a recommendation. I recommend that we approve the ordinance amending the Southern Hills West PDR zone to approve a conceptual site plan, elevations, landscaping, parking on approximately 14.96 acres located at the northeast corner of River Road and White Dome Drive to be known as White Dome Apartments.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Jimmy. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Probably should get a drink of water in between these 2 cases. Okay, the next...
Don't pass out on us, Carol.
Yeah. Oh, why, thank you. I do have water over there, but thank you. The next 2 cases, items number 11 and 12, I'm going to present them together. They're both for Tech Ridge. Item 11 is the development agreement. We would ask that you, when it's time to make a motion, do the motion for the development agreement first. But I am going to present the zone plan first, just because it's got more pictures and it's prettier. No, hold on. It just makes sense to present the zone plan first. So before I begin the actual presentation, I just want to mention that, and I think this council is aware of the amount of time that it has taken for this project to come to this point. It's been about 5 years that we've been working on this project, the Tech Ridge project, and it's been to close to a dozen meetings, public meetings. They've had open houses as well. And so we've come to a culmination point, and I'm the lucky one that gets to present it. So here we are, location. The location is up on the bluff, west of Bluff Street, the location of the old airport. And I say that and everybody knows where it is. For the general plan, the majority of it is commercial on the general plan, and so we'll kind of stretch that bubble for our purposes tonight. The zone map right now, we have most of it as open space. There is one PDC up here. And let me start here with the zone plan. We've got, I'm going to start first with this gray area, which I believe most of you know that this is, I don't even know if they're called Dixie Tech anymore. I don't know what they're called. But this is are they still Dixie Tech? Okay, good. So, good. I didn't even check on that. So this is the location of Dixie Tech. Obviously, this is not a portion of Tech Ridge, and we will not be talking about this tonight when we're talking about this whole zone plan change. All right, so this is what we are being presented. We have 3 areas. The first one is Tech Commons, outlined in blue. The second one is the Crescent in green, and then the third one in pink is the Point. And within these 3 areas, we have little districts. They're districts 1 through 5. The total area involved here is 91.4 acres for all these planning areas, with 60 acres of park space and then 28.6 of open space or right-of-way, with 180.7 acres for the total project. I do want to mention as well, this plan here, what you received in your packet is a little bit different, and I'll mention the different points. I know there was some concern with this little piece of land that was here. It was District 1.5B. This is 1.5A here, and then this was 1.5B, which was a little parkland that was not a part or not contingent to Tech Ridge. That has been removed from the Tech Ridge zone plan, and so it's not included in the development agreement or in the zone plan. And then also, I will mention that in the original plans, there were, you could see it better when I get to the landscaping or the parks and landscaping plan, but there were some designated pathways coming off the east side, kind of dropping down into the downtown area. Those have been removed as well. So they won't be doing that part of the project. So let me move on. All right, so this development, it's all mixed use. They're asking for a mixed use zone. So we will have office, retail, hotels. The total square footage of all of those 3 commercial developments will be just over 1.5 million square feet. And then residential units, they're not going by square footage, they're going by the total number of units, which will be 2,400. They will not be able to go over that maximum number of residential units. And then the residential to commercial ratio is basically 2.0 for all the districts except for District 1, which will have a little bit more housing, and it'll be 2.5. 2.50 will be the ratio of residential units to commercial units. Just going over the density, intensification, they're going to start out the development like this picture on the top, which has street surface parkings. But to make a compact development like this work, they will need to intensify the parking and the uses as well. So they're thinking as time moves on, they will end up going to this image here on the bottom half of the screen, showing that they're putting in parking structures to allow for additional office space. So it'll give them more room to grow and not just have these huge surface parking lots. As far as setbacks go, the setbacks range from 0 to 15 feet, 20 feet, or 50 feet being the maximum. That's the green ones. Along the edge line, they will not allow anything closer than 50 feet from the edge line. However, those green lines also indicate that the person can build right on the property line against the right-of-way on those lots. They just can't go closer than 50 feet to the edge. Building heights, they will be asking for some additional heights that we're used to in St. George. First of all, they are going to graduate the heights. They're not going to just put them all everywhere. There's going to be different locations. This more of a turquoise color here on the left-hand side of the screen. These are be the lower heights with 40 feet being the maximum height of these, kind of graduating up to 55 feet and then going higher. These areas are up against existing residential, so kind of show you how it's going to look. We've got the existing here, and then the applicant wants to put in something that matches the maximum height. So they don't feel overwhelmed with those giant buildings next to them. And then as the development moves closer to the middle, the heights will go up to 85 feet. Here in the middle, these hashed marks are the 85-foot ones. And then a little bit lower heights down here in the solid blue. This is their ridge line plan, kind of showing you that nothing will go in between the ridge line and 50 feet back, and then they'll start graduating the buildings up. So they'll allow 20 feet. Once they get into 75 feet from the ridge line, they'll allow a 35-foot building, and then up to 65 feet once they get back 100 feet. The tallest buildings, which will be 85 feet or less, will be more than 200 feet back from the ridge line on those, to kind of help with the feeling from down below. You don't feel like these big buildings are going to come down right on you. As far as permitted uses, these are pretty typical for commercial and residential uses. These ones have not changed at all. They are in your packet. And then they also provided, they will be design-based, so they've also provided typical building elevations on what they will look like. Tech Ridge will be modern. Most of the architecture here you see here is modern. There will be lots of glazing with modern and lots of metal. This is showing you some ideas of what the residential will look like. Once again, modern, lots of windows, outdoor space as well. As far as parks go, this is their parks and recreation plan. I believe most of this council knows there will be a trail that goes all the way around the ridge. That is located, you can see green all the way around. And then I'll kind of pull up this. The darker green will be town squares, will be more of public gathering spaces. The lighter green will be community parks, with the lightest green being linear parks, and then the yellow being east-west connectors. The yellow basically is up against the right-of-ways. All of the landscaping will be xeriscaped. They will not be allowing any turf except for synthetic turf up there. So this is an idea of what the town square will look like. Right down here is the pavilion. This is actually a plan that I'm going to present to you after the zone plan tonight. So community parks, once again, you see the xeriscape on here, and then once we get into linear park, we get more of the natural landscape in there. And then this is what the east-west connectors will look like. Basically a right-of-way with a lot of landscaping in the right-of-way. Here's a cross-section. On the picture below, this is a linear park, and just want to point out that if they plan on putting any type of structure that overlooks the edge, the ridge edge, they will make sure that there is existing screening as far as natural landscaping there, so that it's not, once again, overwhelming for people down below. Vehicular and active transportation. This will be multimodal destination. There will not, once you get up on the ridge, there will not be designated bike lanes, so there will be sharrows. But there will be strong connectors in between all of the existing roads, all of the trails. There will be connectors in, so anyone that's on the ridge, anywhere in Tech Ridge, they can get over to like the Rim Trail within minutes, because it will all be very easily accessible. And this is where some of those exterior trails were shown, but they have been removed. As far as parking goes, the majority of their parking ratios will be the same as what we already require, except for commercial office. They are going to require 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet, and we right now require they're going to require 3.5, and we right now require 4. So a little bit more dense there. They will be requiring 1.5 spaces per acre for parkland, and they will be counting on-street parking towards their parking requirement, which is something we don't allow right now in our zoning regulations. So that's kind of veering from our regulations as well. They will, other parking considerations, they will be allowing 25% of the parking spaces to be smaller spaces or compact spaces, and up to 25% of the parking will be allowed to be shared parking. And then this is the on-street parking. I just have it, it shows you what it actually says in the zoning regulations. It says that, and this was something that was added more recent. The Planning Commission, when we presented this to them, it wasn't in their packets, but we had it ready for them at the meeting. So basically it says Tech Ridge designated on-street parking can be included when calculating city required parking for commercial, residential, and mixed uses. On-street parking may count up to 50% of the required parking spaces and must be located adjacent to the structure, and on-street parking shall be striped. The zone plan does allow for parklet options, and this will be not something that will be approved in the beginning. It will be something that if the owner of the restaurant or retail spot would like to create a parklet and use up 1 or 2 of the on-street parking spaces, they'll have to make an agreement with the city, and at that point we'll make sure that those spaces aren't dedicated to another building at that point, so that they can use those. For their parking structures, there is a part in the zone plan that talks about shielding the parking structures. They're trying to put them in the center of the blocks, but if they go up against the right-of-way, they do have requirements to put some type of landscaping or artwork, something to kind of mask it so it's not a bunch of concrete. Temporary facilities, the way that this development is going to work, they would like to use temporary facilities. For example, the new building that they would like to start next, which I'm going to talk about, the Skyview building, the applicants already have all of their crew here, and they don't have enough room for them, and they need room for their employees. And so they really would like to be able to house their employees close to where they're going to be eventually working. They don't want to have them working in another state or in another city. They want them to be here in St. George. So with that, they want to be able to use temporary facilities. Those will be required to go through site plan approval, and then we do have stipulations about removal and relocation of these once the main building's complete.
Carol, do we have
yes.
also a stipulation of how long those can be used?
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
did kind of go over all of that during the Planning Commission, and there were updates made. I believe it was 10. Now I can't remember. I'm going to have to look in the zone plan.
Okay.
But I believe it was, at one location, it was 10 years.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an indefinite number.
Yeah, no, we did put a deadline on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 10 years. Yeah. As far as signage goes, there will be monument signs throughout. Those are the blue circles, and then the entryway monuments are here with the pinkish reddish little stars on there. I've been told that these will be changing a little bit, but this is conceptually the style that they'd like to do. These are the entryway ones, and then the other signs to follow. Stadium Plaza. Stadium Plaza will be located on the south end of area or planning area 1.5 or district 1.5. This is right here where this red dot is. This will be a 2-acre private plaza. And this is kind of the idea of what they want to do. At this time, you're not approving this structure that you're seeing. However, you will be approving the deviations from the zoning regulations, allowing this stadium plaza to go approximately 130 feet up, no higher than 130, and then hang over no more than 60 feet off the edge. This will be on the west side of the ridge. And this is, like I said, this is a conceptual plan. They will bring, when they have the official plan, they will bring it back. But this is to be a gathering place. It will be privately owned, but it will be a gathering place for public, for the public and in activities for the future. So I listed out the deviations. I've kind of already talked about most of these, the height ones, hillside ones. Obviously, the stadium monument will go over 60 feet on the ridge line. And then some of the trails on the rim trail will have to have narrow bridges that kind of, because there's areas where it's very narrow and they'll need a bridge to kind of connect two of the trails together. Access management, they will be asking for reduction on a few of those just because of the compact nature of this development. Maximum building coverage, the reason why they're kind of going from our typical 70 to 95% is they're not going to be selling lots, they're going to be selling pads. And the pads are just for the building. The parking will be separate, the landscaping will be separate. So that's why they're going to be filling up their pads up to 95% because it will just be a pad and not a lot. Buffer, there won't be any residential buffering for this development. The mixed use, the residential will just be right in with the commercial. And then amenity requirements, the Tech Ridge, all of the 60 acres of the parkland will count towards the first amenity requirement in their housing developments.
Carol?
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to wait till the very
end.
end.
You're good. Yeah, it might be better. Then I can
that's kind of the first time I heard that explanation. So explain. So the parking, when you say a 95% coverage, well, I've heard it before. I probably just didn't pay attention, but that the parking is going to be elsewhere.
The most of Tech Ridge, the parking will be owned by the developers. And so when they're developing the lots or pads, they're basically going to be developing pads. So someone's going to buy a pad. They're not going to buy the parking.
Gotcha.
They're going to have an agreement for parking with Tech Ridge on that.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. So the pads are not going to go all the way up to the right of way. They're just going to be right where the building's going.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Hey, could you also explain about the bridges on the if you go back to connect the rim trails?
Wait.
I think it was the previous slide.
Yeah. There we go. The Ridgeline Trail bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some areas where it gets, the land gets so narrow that it would be dangerous to try and put a trail on there, so they're going to have to bridge the gap with a bridge, as opposed to a trail that it would be kind of slanted and not very safe. So.
And Carol, that's just because the road is already so close to the edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the trail needs to go between the two, so they'd have to put some reinforcement to get the trail on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it's mostly on the east side.
Yeah, and you'll see one after this. I'll show you one for these. They're having 2 zone plans. Are wanting 2 zone of the zoning areas approved tonight, and I'll show you one of those on there coming up.
So when you say bridge, one side of it is probably going to be connected to the hillside.
Yeah.
It's just an extension of the...
Right. Okay. I talked about that. Okay, parking. Here are the deviations. We did kind of talk about it a little bit. The reduction in the size of parking, the allowance of on-street parking. They're also going to allow the residential parking to be reduced as far as the size goes. And then the shared parking we talked about. They also want to be able to use a transportation demand management plan so that in the future, if they determine that they've got this area where they're putting in some residential units and they're right next to a bus stop and work is right there, if they can prove to us that they don't need those extra parking places, they can present that. Of course, that will have to be approved through this council in the future. And then parklets, we talked about that. Okay, all right, so that's the end of the zone plan. However, they do have two planning areas or two I don't want to say two planning areas because it's really three planning areas that they want to get approved tonight. And this is, we've got the actual plans, we've got the elevations, we've got the actual site plan with these. So I'm going to go over the first one, which is planning area 1.6 and 2.1, phase 2 of that 2.1. So this is 1.6, so it'll cover this piece of land and then a portion of this 2.1. So this is the site plan that they have. We are going to just look at this right here is we're not going to look at these. There's 2 buildings here, and then there's 10 here. We're going to look at these 10 buildings, and then we're going to look at, well, I think it was opposite on that other one. We're going to look at this whole trail here. They want to put in this whole trail. So first of all, the buildings. These will be 2- and 3-story buildings. The ones are circled in red or outlined in red. Those are going to be 3-story. Everything else is going to be 2-story. About 113,000 square feet for the floor area of these. These will be office buildings. No mixed use in these, just 100% office buildings. They won't go over 50 feet on their height, and then their parking will be in the rear. The parking will have covered parking. They'll have solar panels on those covered parking spots, and they are required to have 397 spots, and there's actually 405 spots in this space. As far as landscaping goes, it is kind of a little bit more conceptual. Staff will go through them with the official site plan review on this. But they are putting like a little, and this isn't one of their specific planned parks or in here. This is just their linear park. But there is a little bit of a green space here, a little bit of a gathering spot there. And right here is where you can see the trail bridge in this area where it's really narrow, and it's just for safety reasons on that. They're putting the bridge right there. Here's some elevations, once again, very modern on these buildings. They're all going to be about the same, all 10 of these buildings. This is looking from the ridge side, looking east. And then we're kind of the same, we just got a little bit of a close-up looking kind of towards the south. This is, once again, from the west side again, looking east. And now we're kind of more towards the south end of these buildings, and we're kind of looking a little bit north and east. We've got this view where we're looking west. From this view, this is kind of what the middle in between the buildings will look like. And then the material boards, we do have material boards here for this. We've got wood, simulated wood, metal, and of course the glazing. And some more of the material here. Okay, and then the third item is this planning area 1.4, lot 2, and parcels 1 and 2. So this is right here, this location. So I have a Printer Logic, but I realized they changed their name. So I can't remember it now. Vasion. I was going to say it's not aviation. Okay, so this is existing. So we're talking about this right here, which is going to be the Skyview building. It's going to go right here. And then we'll talk about this space too in a minute. This will be 5 stories. This will be office, all office on the top floors. On the main floor, there will be restaurant and retail, but there will not be any residential. The height will be 76 feet 6 inches. I believe this is in the 85-foot section, so they meet the requirements in here for their zone plan. As far as parking goes, they're having 3 different locations for parking. The first one will be on the site, so they'll be right here. There'll be 11 spaces on the site. There will be 28 spaces on-street parking dedicated for this structure, and then 301 spaces here in this existing parking lot out here. And, well, actually, I should show that with all those spaces, they do go over. They're required to have 332, and then they'll be having 348. This is the elevation of the building, and this, we'll talk about, this is our pavilion that we'll talk about in a minute. And that was looking, I believe that was looking this kind of the same, no, it was looking to the west. But this is looking kind of to the southwest. This one's looking directly to the west. This is the new building here. Right here underneath the building, those are where those 11 parking spaces will be, and that's kind of the entrance to it. And then here's the materials board, which we don't have quite all of the material, but a lot of it. Once again, modern with the metal and the glazing. Okay, so that's this building. And then we're also looking at the pavilion, which will be their first public park area. And this is the plan. This is the pavilion. It will have a raised, the bottom will be raised up. This will be kind of a site plan here of the pavilion. There's seating area, and then this raised area in the middle. Designed that way for possible little mini concerts, gathering spots here at this location. Here's the materials for this. Once again, lots of metal paneling on this one. Okay, so we did take this to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission, they did have a unanimous vote of approval with the following conditions. They did recommend approval with conditions 1 through 4. Conditions 5 and 6, staff has just added. I'll go over them. Basically, the first one is the parking. That item that I read, they wanted it to read that same way, so they put that in as a condition. And then number 2, they wanted to make sure that the applicant returns to the Planning Commission and the City Council to request the 25% shared parking during the time of the PD amendment and site plan, so that you guys will be aware of any time they're asking for any type of a reduction in parking. And then any parking that's not on the same lot, it's okay to use as long as it's adjacent to the building. And then number 4 is temporary structures will comply with all city safety codes, and that they will be approved by staff. As we talked about those earlier, they will be allowed to be there 10 years. We also, in the zone plan, it does state that for the parking, they don't have to do curb and guttering. There's wording in there if they're connecting into a main public road, they need the curb and guttering. But for the temporary area, they're okay without it. The Planning Commission was a little worried, they wanted to make sure that they were complying with the safety codes as far as the structure itself, where the employees would be working. So the applicant didn't have a problem, and so we put that in there with that. 5 and 6, these are new, as I mentioned. We just wanted to make sure there were some changes in between the Planning Commission and tonight. So we wanted to make sure that we added in the condition that all exhibits and figures will have that plan area 1.5B removed. We think we got them all, but we just wanted to make sure we had that as a condition. And then also a final review will be made by the city legal department. As you know, when you're making a document and you're changing things up, sometimes your numbering gets off and some things get indented the wrong way or whatever. So just that final clean look through by our legal staff is one of the conditions. So that's it on the zone plan. I can go right into the development agreement. It shouldn't take too long, and then we can talk about questions on this. Sorry. Need my glasses on that. Okay, development agreement. I believe that you have seen that there is a copy in your packet of the development agreement. There have been a few minor changes, and I will go over those. So there's 14 sections in your development agreement. I'm just going to go over a few of them. I'm not going to go over every one of these. I'm going to start with number 5, the purchase of the property, and kind of go over this a little bit. Obviously, the buyer will have a right, because this is city-owned property, in separate takedowns to purchase the property. The developer is the one that's going to determine the size of the acreage, but it has to be a minimum of 2 acres. And the developer cannot leave any orphan parcels under 4 acres and that don't have 100 feet of right-of-way, frontage on a public right-of-way. The site plan and the final plat will need to be approved before the property can be purchased by the developer. And if no building permit is obtained within 30 months of the takedown, the city shall have first right of refusal to repurchase the property at the same price that the land was sold, plus cost of any improvements made to the property. Oops. Okay, 5.3, term of the option is 20 years. And then purchase price is $169,793.28 per acre. And then on July 1st of each year, the purchase price will be increased by 2%. And in the packet, and this hasn't changed, schedule Exhibit E, it shows all of the items that they can use in-kind payment for the purchase price, and they're listed in that exhibit. Okay, the next section, Section 6, Project Development and Zoning. This is something that is a little bit newer that was added. There's a minimum of a 5-year development plan here, and we've got the dates here that they need to have 378 square feet, initiate construction of this amount within these 5 years. Let's say in this first chunk, they initiate 500,000 square feet of commercial space. They are allowed to carry over that amount that goes over 378 to the next 5-year chunk. So this is the plan for that, till they get to their total amount of commercial square footage. And then 6.8 is the park improvements. The developer is responsible for constructing all of the park improvements, including the east and west park connectors. And then this is something that has been changed. It did say that the developer could construct park improvements on their property plus some adjacent land. All of that adjacent stuff was taken out, so only on their property can they construct park improvements. And then minimum park improvement acre, of course, is 60 acres. That's mentioned in the zone plan. This is the timing on the improvements of parkland. So for District 1, there's 30.5 acres of developable land. So if you take the total 60 acres and you divide them up by the districts, that means they need a minimum acres of park improvements is 10.7, which is 18% of the total land, which the ratio is 0.4 on that. And then it kind of goes through all districts. Now, all park improvements shall be completed prior to 10% of the developable property remaining. And then 18 months, they will be given 18 months to construct the required park improvements for Phase 1. And the the Skyview building, that's phase one, that area right there with the pavilion and all of that. Project development.
Carol,
Oops,
sorry,
yes.
before you
ahead.
go on, can you
Yes.
go back 2 slides, please? I just want to
Yes.
clarify something because this was an item that one more, please.
One more?
Yeah, this is something that we discussed with the council. So that definition, 681, park improvements on project land, I just wanted to clarify that that's referring to property. That's a capitalized term. And property in an updated exhibit that we've been provided by the developer is strictly the land that's on top of the old airport property. Previously, like you mentioned, some of those other areas that have been struck through now, they did include some property kind of down in that area that we referred to as like a little amphitheater, the old landfill actually, some property even up on the upper Black Ridge. That's all been removed. So when we're talking about property, it's a defined specific area that we've agreed in that exhibit is solely that area on top of the ridge itself. And so we believe that that's consistent with the requests that have come from council.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for interrupting me. Keep doing that because it makes it easier to not have to go back at the end because, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, and with all this like motion stuff, it takes forever to go backwards. Okay, so we're still in number 6, project development and zoning, minimum park improvement expenditure. The developer's minimum expenditure will be $21 million, and the total amount must be expended by the time all project improvements are completed. And then impact fees, park impact fees. Each owner actually must pay a park impact fee for each of the building permit applications within the project. Community reinvestment areas, project financing, this is section 8. We acknowledge that the developer intends to seek a CRA. This will happen at a separate time and it's not involved in this process right now. On to number 9, which is general rights and responsibilities for the developer. Okay, so we're talking about the different roads. 9.5 is construction of West Access Road. So there's 2 access road, the west one and then the east one. And this is the west one is the Indian Hills Drive, and then the Black Ridge Drive is the east one. So the west access road, the developer shall be required to construct the west access road, and this includes the design, engineering, and construction costs, and it also includes bonding and warranty and the 10% contingency. Now for the east access road, the city may construct the east access road in a time frame acceptable to the city at its discretion. The city is responsible for paying for the design and engineering and eligible facilities for reimbursement as per Section 8 of this agreement. So this is eligible to do the reimbursement for the city. The city shall have the option at its sole discretion to construct this project improvement. And if the city constructs it, then the developer obviously doesn't have to construct it, but if the developer does it, they will not be available as an in-kind payment. Continuing with Section 9, 9.6 is reconfiguration of Tech Ridge Parkway. I'm still talking about the roads. The developer is responsible for the engineering, the design, the construction cost, including bonding, warranty, and the 10% contingency to reconfigure Tech Ridge Parkway, including pedestrian and trail access from its current connection at Bluff Street to a new connection at 100 South. The new road segment shall be completed within 3 years of the construction start date of the east access road, and it is not available for in-kind payment. And then 9.7 is agreement contingent upon vehicular access. This agreement obviously is contingent upon the perpetual and uninterrupted operation of the west, east, and Tech Ridge Parkway roads, all those 3 accesses. And if any of these 3 roadways are unavailable to convey vehicular traffic, as contemplated in this agreement, the contract will be suspended until an alternative is constructed, and Donley Drive is not considered a viable alternative on that one. Okay, general.
Carol, sorry.
Yes.
So say that again. So So the agreement just goes into suspense and says, hey, this,
Yeah.
let's say the one coming off the Black Ridge side, we have an issue with, then the agreement is just stopped.
Right, that they won't be able to pursue any more PD amendments, or they'll just have to get that fixed before that it can continue.
What if there's no fix? I'm just hypothetically here. I mean, I'd hate, you know, from the developer standpoint,
Right.
you know, I'd hate to
Right.
have him go down that far down that road.
Right. If there's no fix, well, then that goes over to the legal department.
Yeah, no, the intent, I mean, we recognize that the success of this project, the impact that it's going to have, we need those 3 roads to be functioning. And if we don't have 3 roads, then it makes sense to us that we would have to suspend the agreement and reevaluate whether or not we could continue at that time. I would assume all manner of traffic studies and engineering reports, and that is a worst case scenario. We don't think it's likely, but we felt like the 3 accesses being operational permanently was so important that we wanted to be able to provide that coverage if necessary.
So, and right now, the only one I would say would be kind of unknown would be that east one because of
Probably.
soil conditions.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
But even then, I mean, at this point, we do believe that road can be built. We're confident in that. But it's a worst case scenario, yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay. Okay, number 10, which is provision, 10.2 is provision of system improvements and other infrastructure. Basically, what this is saying is if there's, we're going to provide sufficient utilities, sewer, electric, water. If there is not, if they want to expand something which requires a huge demand of electricity, they're going to have to pay for the upgrades. That wasn't included in the original. And then this is number 11, specific rights and responsibilities. The city and developer understand and acknowledge that no quantity of water necessary to serve any portion of the project is guaranteed or available for use when the project until, and these 3 things are met. A, the final plat or site plan or subsequent amendment thereto is approved by the city. All applicable impact fees have been paid by the developer. And number 3, the Washington County Conservation District has issued a will serve letter or equivalent acceptable to the city. And obviously, we don't know water conditions in the future, so that we have this in there to protect us all, to understand that we don't know what the future is going to bring on that. The final section I have in here, this is the general terms and conditions, successors and assigns, basically saying that the developer can transfer some of these rights or sell off some of his land to somebody else. However, they will still, whoever they sell them to are still liable to this agreement as it stands. And I hope I understood everything in
Carol,
that.
I thought that meant that the city retained the right to select the successor.
Oh.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, because
And
I
actually
didn't read this very well.
Yeah, so the final version of this does not include that top paragraph. It's actually just the smaller, simpler second paragraph that's on the screen. But it is essentially, because the city is the landowner, we would retain the right to determine who that partner is on an ongoing basis. We hope that it's Isaac and Company for the remainder of the development, the whole term of the agreement. But if something were to happen, this one is unique where we are the landowner. If this were a third party, I don't know that this language would be appropriate, but where we're the landowner, it makes sense.
Thank you. I did not catch that, and I apologize for putting in that top paragraph. And I think that's it.
That's it?
Yeah. I'm still standing.
Good job, Carol. You're still standing. You can have a drink of
First St.
water.
George Marathon.
Yeah, right.
Congratulations.
I want to say thank you to the staff and to Isaac for working on this development agreement. It's been a long time coming, 5 years. So you all worked hard and wanted to, I mean, since we own that property, we need to be protected, and I think this does a good job in protecting us. Council, any questions? Carol, you can't sit down yet. Questions for Carol?
So just to make sure, explain to me both of these parts that what we're doing, and make sure I know for sure. So 11 versus 12.
So the development agreement first.
Correct.
Right.
And then the zone.
And then it will be the zone plan, and then it will be that first 1.6. I can't even remember.
Right. I think I understand that part.
Yeah.
So those are the two separations, is just the development agreement and then the zone plan for. So we have to do the development agreement first. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so are there any questions on the development agreement?
Questions
Or comments?
I have a comment. I said this the other day, but I mean, I think this is really exciting for St. George. We're doing something that we've never done before. It's so different. I mean, it's why the presentation is so long and there's so many complexities to it, and it's taken 5 years, is because, but it's an exciting opportunity to build a tech ecosystem and to build wealth in our community and to help our kids to stay here and to help our knowledge to stay here. I mean, we now have Dixie Tech and we have Utah Tech, and to be able to create that ecosystem and have that knowledge stay here and have our kids have an opportunity to be part of this really exciting tech ecosystem. For me, it's really exciting. I view it as an extension of downtown. I think that we've worked really hard to put a lot of stopgaps in place. I think that's been some of the concern of council, is that, you know, what ifs, and I feel like we've worked really hard in this development agreement to make sure those release valves are there, so that if there's an issue, we can revisit it. So I personally have read this over and over and over and over, which I'm sure I haven't read it even 1/100th as much as staff. I know, I'm really nerdy. The mayor knows that. But I love that they're, you know, incorporating the parks and the trails. I mean, just the stuff we're seeing tonight is really exciting. It's going to be a great extension of our downtown, and different, you know, just an enhancement, but really, Councilman MacArthur and I were talking about today, you know, our downtown's so quaint and amazing, and then this is so high-tech and modern, and it will just be a fun and really cool and exciting addition to our city.
And I would agree with that. And a little bit of a rebuttal. I'm the dinosaur. I was here when we started making this agreement, when we put out this request for proposal, and we're so close, and it's so exciting to see what's starting to occur here. And I think it's really in tune with the vision that we had. And when we had these two proposals come in, I mean, there's no question that the developer, Isaac, had a vision that we all took to and wanted to see happen. And I think I've tried to be a good cheerleader for that, and we're getting there. One of my concern comes down to just a couple of things, and I can explain it easiest this way, and that is, you know, it feels a little bit like that we're at the point now where we said, hey, if 2 scoops of ice cream are good, 4 are better. And what's going to happen from there? Do we really know? And like Danielle said, this is something new. It's something we haven't tried. When we start talking about density, we don't have a really good example of where this kind of density has happened in Utah, or you know, we have a few places we might be seeing that, and I'll mention that in a moment. And so it just comes down to a simple concern of when we do this high density and we double the size of this project that we kind of started with, or even over double, what does that look like when we come off onto Bluff Street? We heard earlier that we're already trying to get 40,000 cars a day down Bluff Street. What does this do to that, and what does it do to the overall traffic? And do we then, as an extension of that, put ourselves in this development agreement we just went through, and you guys are all, you can relate to this, the DeVario project, where we had a development agreement in place, and we kind of felt pinned when we could see some things that that maybe could have been tweaked a little, still giving the developer what was agreed to, but when we didn't have the option to do that. And it kind of put some of us in a little bit of a bind. I think we all know that. I don't want to see us do that in this case. I know there's some outs, and I feel a lot more confident tonight about some of those outs. And that was, if you remember, that was Michelle was here at the time, but that was kind of our concern as the property owner as we did this development agreement, is we wanted to make sure we had some control over this as it went forward, because it is property owned by the public, and we wanted to make sure that was done. And I know there's some concern that it's taken so long and everything, but as I've tried to study this out, I actually, thank you, Isaac, I have a Tech Ridge for Dummies. This has been very good. And really, there's some really good stuff in here, and the economic impact that some of these tech jobs are going to have, you can't understate that. It's going to be phenomenal. And most of what you look at this project, you say this is super exciting. Again, it comes down to the fact, are we painting ourselves into a corner in terms of density, especially the housing units going so high, and the number of people that we're going to try to put on our aircraft carrier up there, and the number of accesses we have off of there, which I stated earlier, my concern, I know there is some concern, and we feel a little more confident that we can get that east exit off of there. And again, that's needed. We know that. Obviously, there's that clause in there that says if we don't suspend it, I don't want to see that happen. And I think I expressed this to the developer, to Isaac, that I want him to be successful, because that makes us successful. And there's a lot of pressure here where this is owned by the public. So I would like us to find a way that we can let this idea go forward without saying that we know that 2,400 units is the magic number. And I just do simple math, and I know some of you might argue with me. 2,400 units is 4,800 people, minimum. And then you're going to put 600 hotel rooms up there, 1 million square foot of office space, 260,000 square feet of retail. There's a lot of people going to be up there. So and we already have Dixie Tech. The developer also has another development going off on the Carter property. There's several units there. They're going to be using one of those access roads spilling off onto Indian Hills Drive. Traffic is an issue in our community, and we hear more and more complaints from the general public. So I want to see us have our arms around that without just saying, we're going to get in that DeVario dilemma where we say, hey, we've already signed a development agreement and we have no say in this. So that's my concern. The point, we do have something coming up that might be similar to this, and that if you go to Salt Lake, where the point of the mountain, the old prison, that's going to be turned over to the state and become a 600-acre development. So I've done some research on that. They haven't picked a developer yet, but you can go on their site and see that they've had somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 public meetings on that already. And that's a good thing, because if it's a good idea today, it'll be a good idea in 10 years from now when the project's complete. So I just hope we can maybe find a way that we can do that in this development agreement, where we can say, hey, this is working, that density is okay. Where if it's not okay, we can also say, hey, this isn't working, that density is just inundated the traffic. So that's my 2 cents at this point, and I'm welcome some feedback and tell me I'm wrong.
I'll just add to that. So first and foremost, I think Tech Ridge is I think we all can agree, everybody in this room can agree that Tech Ridge is extremely important for St. George, for the economic viability of St. George. It gives us the opportunity to attract these higher paying, these tech jobs. The vision on this is actually, it's awesome. There's incredible parts of Tech Ridge that I really enjoy. I think Isaac's been doing a great job on a lot of this. And the culture that's up there. I have family members. One works at Vasion, and it's just the culture is really good, and I love to see that coming into Southern Utah. So I like Tech Ridge for it giving us the opportunity to say, look at this amazing thing that nobody else has. Come to St. George. It's just another reason to come here, and I think this is giving us that. What else let's see. I think Isaac has been extremely good to work with the city. Everybody on the city staff says that if there's any concerns we have, Isaac's always open. Every communication that I've had with our developer has always been extremely open. There's never been anything that's like trying to dissuade or anything. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And I really like that. You don't see that a lot in developers sometimes. So Isaac, I think, is doing a good partner for us. Having said those things, I want to echo what Jimmy said, is I have concern about the density. And that's been probably my main concern. When we look at 91 developable acres and we're putting 2,400 units on it, plus 1 million square feet of office space, plus hotels as well, that is very dense. And I've been requesting this for a year, and everybody knows this. I've been a broken record. I've been saying we should have an independent third party come and tell us not if we can do this, but if we should do this at this level. I mean, the original proposal that was passed through was half of that density. And if it does work, then that's great. I just wanted us to have an independent group come and tell us that, because I am concerned about it. It's also a view corridor as well. When, I looked at the point as well. I followed that. And with the open meetings that they've had, and they've solicited just heavily from the public, what are your thoughts? Not just saying, okay, this is our state land and this is what we're going to do with it. They've solicited and said, well, what do you want? What do you want? And then they hired a third-party individual who's done this with different places that isn't the developer, that isn't the city, that came in and gave third-party views on what they should do and insights. And I always really like that, and those are things that I thought we should do more of here, which I don't think we've done. So I absolutely want this to be successful. I think we're on the right track. We're right there. Those densities scare me. I would like to see an independent group come and get involved in that to help us make those decisions, make sure we're making the right decisions. I mean, through the process of, I've talked to city staff, I've talked to others in the community, everybody's been, that 2,400, I don't know, that's really dense. And I don't know, it's just a concern. One more thing, and that is, let me see. Maybe I've made my points there. So the other thing is, I want to see our local businesses be successful, and I know that they need the help to be able to expand. I got an email from Clint with Zonos a little bit earlier saying, hey, we need this. We need to have this here. And so one of the things that I've proposed, or I brought up earlier, was saying, look, I want to approve all of the office and things that we have that are ready to go right now, because it's going to take time to get those. And then I wanted to see us have an independent look at things before we approve the rest and that density. And that was one thing. I don't know how that's been received, but I thought that was one way to make sure that we help out our local companies and make sure that we keep this moving on, because it's going to happen. And I think it's really awesome. I just want to make sure that we do it right.
I guess my thoughts would be, it is going to happen. It does need to happen. I think that after 5 years of studying and evaluating and a partnership really between the city of St. George and the developer, I think ultimately, I'm going to vote to support the development agreement, and I believe that the market will determine the pace and all the other factors, because I cannot imagine that anybody's going to spend the type of money that this project is not only potentially going to cost, but it's also going to return on investment, unless the market will support it. And so that's my thought.
So that's what I was going to say to Councilman Vardell Curtis. Literally, your name just left my head. Was that, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's like the market will determine this. And so I think it does sound scary when you're just saying, almost like tomorrow this will be up there. But it's like, I don't see any better place for density, and we know that we need density desperately. It's a much better use of our water. It's a much better use of our land resources. It helps us preserve our land resources when we put density in smart places. And so for me, having density that close to downtown so that it's accessible for people outside of they can use different modes of transportation. It's preserving water. They're doing solely xeriscape up there. To me, I can't think of a better place for density to give us the housing units that we need, but also show smart, preservation-minded housing. So it's like we need the housing, but we need it to be smart. We need it to be land-wise, preservation smart, and for me, that's what this looks like. And it won't happen overnight, and like you say very wisely, the market will determine the pace of the building.
So I've read through the development not as many times as Danielle, I'm sure. She probably reads it 5 times a day. But I've read through it a few. And I will say again to staff, I think staff has done a remarkable job with this development. I think they have made sure they've protected us. Yes, you could hire an independent consultant. You could hire 5 and you're going to get 5 different opinions. That's just how it's going to go. And I think we're way past that point of backing off to hire an independent consultant. So with that being said, I am ready for a motion on the development agreement.
Turn off my microphone. Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve a development agreement between the city and Tech Ridge LLC for an approximate 180.69 acre development to be located west of Bluff Street and south of 265 South Street, to be known as Tech Ridge Mixed Use Master Plan Development.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Vardell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Questions for Carol or the developer on the ordinance or the zone change? I
have one.
Okay.
On the zone change for the bridges that go over, when we're talking about the ridge line, if I just like to see if we could add a stipulation that if we put those in, just make sure that when you dig things out on the side, it brings out a bunch of red dirt and things like that. Just to make sure that if those are put in, the natural landscape matches.
To so visibly mitigate it.
Yeah, so we visually mitigate anything like that. That's the one thing I wanted to add to that one.
Any other questions? Just that one?
It's your last chance.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance changing the zone from open space, PD, plan development, C2, and R3 multifamily residence to PDMU on approximately 180.69 acres located west of Bluff Street and south of 265 South Street. The former location of the airport to be known as Tech Ridge.
With the recommendations of the Planning Commission and Greg's new added recommendation?
Yes.
Good
one.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Bardell.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Is that it on that one?
That's it. We're to item 13, appointments.
Okay, quickly. I think we have some tech people in the back.
Oh, we didn't know you guys were here.
I have just some appointments to the Planning Commission. I am reappointing Austin Anderson to serve another 2 years, reappointing Nathan Fisher to serve another 2 years, reappointing Emily Andrus to serve another 2 years. Emily's is seat B, Nathan is seat F, Austin is seat G, and then asking that you approve. come on, Christina. Lori Chapman as our new, I had totally lost her name. Lori Chapman as a new planning commissioner to serve as 2 years.
And Ray Draper?
No, Ray's term's not up yet.
Okay.
Is there a limit on any of? Just curious. Not that it.
No, you can go forever if you want.
I'd suggest you take anybody who's willing to keep doing
That's
it.
right.
That was my point.
Nathan wants to stay, so we're keeping him.
You know,
Nathan's a great planning commissioner.
Lori Chapman, as a current real estate commissioner appointed by the governor, whose term now expires this year, is going to be a great addition to that planning commission, in my opinion.
Yeah, she said she's done with all her state boards and her local boards, so she was really excited to be on this board. So, with those four, I would take a motion that they be approved.
I'd make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Reports, Danielle, got anything?
Yeah, and I had to leave early last time, so I wasn't sure if we announced that the landfill is going to start doing fines for uncovered loads. Did you guys talk about that?
I can't remember if we brought it up or not, but
Okay, well,
they are, and our
Public announcement.
PD is also on it too.
Okay.
We're not doing warnings anymore. We're just
Okay.
doing straight tickets.
and I just wanted to, I have just a couple things. I'm on the Dove Center board, just reminding people to remember those in need at this time of year. It's such a hard time, especially for people who are outside of secure housing and people who are in abusive situations. So just reminding people to remember those organizations really are always in really heavy need of donations at this time of year. I just wanted to give you guys a fun update on the art museum. So the art museum used to charge, and it wasn't very well attended. I've had so many locals who grew up here say, oh, we have an art museum. It just has been, for a lot of people, not in their purview. And our art museum staff has been doing a really amazing job this year getting people to notice the art museum. And so what they did is they stopped charging and they started making more money because they put a donation box out, and they've been making quite a bit more money in a donation box than they were making. And their attendance is way up. The other thing that they've done is started highlighting. The gift shop used to just be gifts. Now it's only local art, local artists highlighting people that live here and their specialties. It's really fun. And so I just wanted to throw that out to you guys. If you haven't been to the art museum lately, there's a really great exhibit right there by a local named Matt Pechtel. Beautiful paintings. And I just wanted to give them a shout out because they're doing such a good job. And then just to remind people to shop locally if you haven't bought your Christmas presents yet. Local gifts are not on ships out in the ocean.
They're not stuck on a freight.
They're not. They're right here. So
Yeah.
think about it. Buy local. That's it. Thank you.
Jimmy, got anything?
Not really. I'll just one thing of note, just because it's interesting as far as traffic concerns from DTEC meeting was the approval to do an environmental impact study for the western corridor portion from Old Highway 91 to
Gap Canyon Parkway.
When you think western corridor, we've always been telling people not in our lifetime. I think it needs to be in our lifetime because that obviously we know what's happening over in that end of the city, and it really needs to come on over through Sun River. Probably,
but don't go home and tell your neighbors that.
But
Judy.
But we did move. We did talk about moving that up in one of our next coming up in a couple of years when we redo that plan to move that up into sooner than 2040, 2050.
Yeah, 2040 was when it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was just of note, just because of the growth in the county, and we know how impactful the southern corridor has been and is going to be with. So anyways, just Other than that, Switchpoint's going well. I have that board meeting this week. St. George Housing Authority is everything's going great. Obviously, housing is always a concern.
Thank you. Brian?
Again, Chief, and to Jordan, congratulations on the great award. And don't forget about Wreaths Across America Saturday, 10 o'clock. And the Gold Star Wall is in the country. It's off the ocean. It's off the ocean. So we should get back on track and have a Gold Star Wall here pretty soon. So.
Great.
No report.
Bardell?
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor, I forgot my last one. Are you going to say something about these two?
I was going to.
Okay, I won't steal your thunder then.
Well, I wanted to just say first, wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very happy 2022. And remember our Christmas dinner party on Tuesday night. But this is Brian and Bardell's last council meeting. And we appreciate your dedication and your service to the city. You both have been phenomenal, and I know I'm going to miss you tremendously. And thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's been a great run. I hope, and the next council is as good a team as we have been. I really hope that you have the cohesion that we have had, and I appreciate the friendships that I've gained over here and the people I've met and worked for. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Have a Merry Christmas.
I would echo Brian's sentiment as well. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And until you put yourself in a position where you get to learn and teach as well as learn, grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you both. You have anything to say?
I have a question. Who's going to carry on the facial hair on the new council?
Danielle.
I was going to say, Natalie left, so maybe we can nominate Danielle. I can't. I just can't. It just doesn't work.
Adam can't either, you babies.
Yeah.
Which one of you is going bald?
This is 3 weeks now.
Yeah, we will miss the facial hair. Danielle, you have anything you want to say?
I just appreciate these guys so much. Such honorable and wonderful men, and it has just really been an honor for me to work with you.
And amen. One thing you'll take away from this experience is you'll know and be able to say that you stepped up for your community and what that's like. And I think it'll always make you want to be involved in some fashion as well, and make sure things are done in a way that's conducive to a good cohesive community. So I really appreciate.
We'll be on Zoom with popcorn.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You will not. You'll be at the golf course.
Come on. Don't kid us.
This isn't goodbye. It's just see you later,
Well, I'll never view a coin toss differently or the same ever again. So it's been a great experience.
Had to bring it up.
And with that, I'd make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Nice.
Wait, Adam has...
Two things.
Sorry.
I wanted to just quickly do something I don't know that we've done for a really long time. We have individuals who help us with our council meetings, and so I just wanted to recognize James and Marcus Farnsworth with CEC. They're our camera operators because of the work they do. It's so professional. It's totally behind the scenes. In the 4 years that I've been here, never once that I'm aware of have we had an issue with the broadcast. They're just professional. They do their job. They're here on time, and just wanted to take a minute, recognize them, and thank them for the work they do to help us get these meetings out. And then I just wanted to, on behalf of all of staff, tell you as elected officials, thanks for your service to the community. It means a lot. We have that front row seat as city staff. We get to see all the ups and downs, the ins and outs, the challenges you face. I don't know that until you've sat in that seat you can truly understand what that's like and the pressures and everything that comes with that. But we just appreciate you. We see you doing the work. it amazes us all the time. And just thank you for stepping up for this community. We really appreciate it.
Well, I hope the new people see the amazing staff that you have and that we get to work with. So, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned, and we'll see you in 2022. Bye.